Welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast. I am so glad you're here. We challenge conventional thinking about customer experience because I believe that improving experiences isn't just good for business, it's a powerful way to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. Each week, we feature thought-provoking conversations with industry thought leaders from a variety of backgrounds, offering unique perspectives and actionable insights. Get ready to sharpen your leadership and transform your approach to customer experience. Let's dive in. Well, my guest today is a United States Marine Corps veteran, a leadership consultant, and the author of The Bravery Effect. And for the past 25 years, she's been developing leaders at all levels, from the battlefield to the boardroom. She actually started her career blowing things up. Yes, you heard me correctly. She led a Marine Corps demolition team and then moved into selling drugs, the legal kind, pharma, of course. And now she's on a mission to make people uncomfortable in the best possible way, because she believes the only path to greatness runs straight through your comfort zone. She's worked with Fortune 500 companies, studied at University of Pennsylvania under top minds in positive psychology, and has made her life's work to help people go from safe to stuck to bold and to brave. And she claims running uphill is fun, so we already know she's not normal. Jill Schulman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Not only running up hills, but my new thing is running up stairs.
Oh my goodness.
I know. It's a good workout though.
The few, the proud.
The few, the proud. Like one of the things that we say in the Marine Corps sometimes is embrace the suck. Have you ever heard of that? Like it's like,
yeah.
Yeah. So like I think of that. I'm like, oh, it's burning, this hurt, embrace the suck. This is where you forge strength. Yeah. I'm kind of weird that way.
I'm excited today to talk about the concept of the Bravery Effect, and I know you've got a book, and we're going to think about this in terms of individual bravery and change leadership courage. A high-level overview of the Bravery Effect. Talk a little bit about the book and why it's so meaningful to people who are leading change in these difficult times of ours, and what tools we can use to help equip them, regardless of their particular profession or industry. So I want to start by, if you don't mind, you said blowing things up. Like, could you tell us a little bit more about what was involved, what you did, and on kind of both sides of that, building things to help?
Yeah. So my job was I was a combat engineer officer. And then people are like, oh, you're an engineer? I'm like, no, I don't have an engineering degree. Like, this is like, no, this is Marine Corps expeditionary. This is like building things temporarily and blowing things up. So the mission of combat engineers is we call mobility and countermobility. So whenever we're pursuing the enemy and there's an obstacle in the way, it was the job of my Marines to negotiate those obstacles, which sometimes would be going through a minefield, removing mines, or building a road or a bridge if it was blown and we needed that. So anything to help us pursue the enemy. And then counter mobility is when we're in a defensive posture, then it's really fun to think strategically about how do I make it hard for the enemy to get to us? Then that's where you blow up the bridge so they can't get to you, or you build anti-tank ditches, or you put in the minefields. Yeah, that's what combat engineers do: blow things and build things and blow things up.
So you thank you for making it simple for us, number one. But also, you mentioned the word strategically, and it makes me think like there's a method to the madness in this, and there's a way to think about how to address a challenge that I assume you were able to leverage what you learned in the Marines to the business world.
Yeah.
You want to say a little more about that?
Yeah. Especially if I relate it to the research on bravery. This is good because I'm kind of bridging the gap between the two. But one of the things that we do in the military is we come up with our best tactical plan to accomplish the mission, right? But part of great strategy is anticipating what will go wrong. And this is coming from someone who's considered an expert in happiness and well-being, a positive psychology practitioner. Because some people think positive psychology, that's just happyology, right? You're just Pollyanna, like positive. Actually, no. Anticipating what may go wrong is smart strategy. And that helps make sure that you actually get through through those obstacles. So yeah, as Marines, we always come up with our best tactical plans, and then we're always thinking of like, okay, what if this happens? What are the most probable things that could go wrong? And we develop contingency plans. And then same thing, like we're in a defensive posture. Like we actually put ourselves in the enemy's shoes, and we think about like, if you were trying to get into where we are, how would you do it? So like we try to do some creative thinking from an enemy perspective, and then what's every single way they could potentially come through and attack. And then that's where I think it's the fun part of thinking about like what could go wrong from a defensive posture. So yeah, thinking strategically is not just coming up with a plan and then skimming along with, butterflies and rainbows and unicorns, like everything's going to be fine. Like you want to come up with a plan that you're confident that will work, but you got to think about what may happen. And because of the psychology background, that helps you psychologically, because then when something goes wrong, you're not like, oh no, see, it didn't work, I'm going to quit. Mm-hmm. Instead, you're like, I knew that this would be hard, and I knew there might be some things that go wrong, and now I'm ready. And then you have a positive response to obstacles and challenges.
Well, thank you, Jill. That helps connect the dots for me, and why you're so good at what you do now. And so I want to talk a little bit about bravery. I did some research on my own, looked up the definition of bravery.
Ooh, what did you come up with?
And what I found was courageous behavior or character, the quality of having or showing mental or moral strength to face danger.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. And there's a lot of different definitions, and I get asked that question a lot. So just in general, what I'd like to emphasize in the definition of bravery is it's not being fearless. That's the biggest myth or misnomer. Like, I'm not scared of anything, I'm so brave. Actually, the definition of bravery, and you were teasing it out right there, is taking steps forward in the presence of fear. So, one of the things I tell my audience as I speak around the globe is, if you sometimes feel uncertain or a little scared, or fear is causing you to kind of pause, that's normal. Bravery is recognizing there's fear and moving forward anyway. Now, the difference between courage and fear, I made a decision, when I wrote my book, I kind of use them interchangeably. But if you look at the academic definition, if you really want to know the difference, we look at courage as more of a character virtue. It's more internal feeling. And then bravery is the tangible thing that you do. So, you've got to have courage to be brave. But, in general, I think it's too confusing to be like, well, that isn't really courage. That's bravery, because you're whatever. They're kind of interchangeable. But yeah, so bravery is, being scared and doing it anyway.
So what white space did you see out there to write the Bravery Effect?
For me, it kind of just... like a lot of things, it's not like I didn't even strategically plan to there's an open market here, and no one's talking about bravery, right? It actually happened organically. As I moved from the Marine Corps to leading in corporate America, and then for the last 11 years, I've had my own leadership development consulting practice that does really well. A couple years ago, I was getting, I wanted to stretch myself. We all want to learn and grow. So I went back to school and studied at Penn under some of the brightest minds in positive psychology, because I just wanted to learn from them. And then as a part of that master's program, you have to do a capstone. And so as I was learning everything about how do you elevate happiness and well-being, specifically in organizations to drive results, what was I most interested in? And there's different things that can contribute to higher levels of happiness and well-being. And there's one of them that doesn't get enough attention out there. So the 5 things, it's the acronym of PERMA. This comes from Marty Seligman's research, the father of positive psychology. So positive emotions, important at work. We've got to generate positive emotions because it matters at work. E is engagement, known as flow. Csikszentmihalyi High's research on getting into the flow state. R is relationships, obviously important outside of work and at work. Then M is meaning, and then A is accomplishment. So all of these are the 5 things that we know with scientific certainty that elevate happiness and well-being. And if we can create them in the workplace, then it really impacts results, the bottom line, and job satisfaction and retention and all that stuff. So as I was going through all of my studies, I just realized sometimes the one thing that sometimes blocks people from, I think, the highest levels of success at work, results, and then happiness and well-being is fear. Fear holds them back. Fear, it controls people. Fear takes the wheel and makes decisions for us. And And it really impacts this A in PERMA. In order to accomplish what we want in life, to develop our self-concordant goals, many times it's fear, like I'm just not ready, or I don't know. It's uncertainty, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of failure sometimes has a negative impact on our career, on our business results. So we play safe. So I just was so fascinated by that. And maybe it's my Marine Corps background. I'm like, I just want to dig into, like, does fear have so much power over us? And how can we conquer that fear in order for us to live our best life and to drive greater results? So, and then no one's really talking about it. If anything, Mark, you know what everyone's talking about? This is what everyone's talking about. Like, oh, don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Don't stress. Just if it's scary, let's just remove what's scary. And I'm coming back, and I want to be the voice that tells people, like, if there's something that scares you, I don't want you to run away from it. I want you to run toward it. Because if you can run toward it and overcome it, like, the impact on just the individual, their self-confidence, their self-belief, their self-efficacy, it is something that makes a profound impact on people's lives. So out in news or modern culture, there's too many voices saying, do what's easy, do what's comfortable. Let's take away things. I'm not here to coddle anyone. I'm here to help people learn to be brave.
And so what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about bravery?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what it is, we already talked about that. It's not about being fearless. If you're feeling fear or if you're scared, you're normal. So I want people to realize that you can be brave and scared. It's deciding to take the step forward. So that is one thing, the definition. Number two, I think the biggest myth is that people think bravery is reserved for United States Marines charging into battle, first responders running into a burning building. They think that it's reserved for heroic moments. They're thinking of a very narrow definition of fear, which is just physical, right? Fear, running toward things that might be dangerous. So I really want to help people expand the definition of bravery and know it's anything that you fear. And it could be simple things like I have a fear of maybe sharing my ideas at work, right? Because I'm afraid that I'll get shot down. It could be, I need to have this really difficult conversation, but it's just so uncomfortable, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. So I'm not going to have an uncomfortable conversation. I'm just going to pretend like everything's okay. Or I really, really, really want to go for that promotion, but I'm scared. I don't know if I'm ready yet. So the definition of fear is much more expansive than just those heroic moments. And so if we really understand what bravery is, then bravery is a skill that we all need to become better at, because we all have fears, and facing those fears and overcoming what is holding us back from having the biggest impact is just, it's for everyone. So bravery isn't just for soldiers and first responders. It's for all of us. And then the last thing I just hinted at there is bravery is not a trait, skill. And so I've got all the evidence behind, like, anyone can learn to step forward in the face of fear. And not only do we have evidence on people can build it, all the evidence on the positive impact it has, not only on their success and their impact and their goal achievement. I mean, I care about all that. That's why companies hire me, because that's what they care about. But what I really care about, even at a greater level, is what it does to the psychology of the person. They move from self-doubt to pride, their self-belief increases, so I really love about that effect of bravery, not just on the goal, the results, but really on what people become on the journey to becoming brave.
Given that those myths about bravery, what are some ways that people, leaders in particular, misstep when they're leading their teams relative to bravery?
I think there's a couple of tangible ways I can think in the business environment. A couple things that come to mind is, number one is, in order for us to have the biggest impact, the first thing is our goals should be brave. Like, what are the goals that we're setting, right? Sometimes in organizations, and what leaders get wrong is we think, all right, I want to set people up for success. Let's let's maybe lower the standard. Let's not really go for it. So just in general, like, we should be setting goals that are a little scary. There should be a little bit of fear there, because those challenging goals, what we know, it actually creates that psychological arousal. It increases engagement. So don't set easy goals for your people. You might be thinking, oh, I want people to be happy at work, so I just want everything to be like very easy and achievable. That is a misstep. You are robbing people of the opportunity to accomplish something meaningful, to get into that flow state. So I really teach leaders to work with their teams to set really brave goals, things that scare them, but scare them in that very good way, right? Make you uncomfortable in a, like, if we can achieve that, that's going to be great. So I think that's one thing that comes to mind. And the other thing that I'm pretty passionate about, I've been talking about recently in organizations, is making sure that we're teaching the skill of bravery in the workplace. Like, is it relevant? And no one's really teaching bravery. I mean, I'm talking about some of the cognitive skills here. What we want in organizations, we want an environment where everyone can speak freely. People can share their ideas. They can ask their questions, because that's going to lead to better outcomes. So we spend so much time talking about psychological safety, right? And I teach it. I mean, my leadership development company, we know it's important. We spend a lot of time teaching it. So we focus on the leader, just making sure everyone's comfortable to speak up. But there's two sides to the coin here. And I think the missing part is we need to also teach our people how to be brave in their communication. So courageous communication. And it's a skill that people can build. So if someone's super shy and a little tentative and they don't think of themselves as brave, you can create the best psychological safety ever, and they're going to still sit there because they just don't have that bravery. So I think that's a skill that we need to teach. In fact, I think we need to develop an expectation that this is a part of your job is to find, the courage to speak up and share your ideas, because we need them. We want you to ask questions and feel comfortable being vulnerable. I know that you're probably scared of maybe sounding like you're not credible because you have a question. So let's actually teach people how to be brave in these ways, so that we can have the true goal of psychological safety is not everyone just to go to work and feel safe and loved. No, the goal of psychological safety is to have an environment where everyone can openly share their ideas, ask their questions, so we can drive business forward. So I think bravery fits there too.
Yeah. Struggling to connect the dots across your customer journeys? You're not alone. For many CX professionals, journey mapping is still manual and fragmented, especially in large organizations. JourneyTrack changes that. Their platform unifies journey mapping, management, and measurement in one place, giving you a real-time view of every touch point. Uncover friction, align teams, and prove the ROI of your CX initiatives so you can make smarter decisions and deliver smoother journeys. Want to see how AI can help you map smarter, not harder? Download our free white paper at journeytrack.io/podcast, or click the link at the end of the show notes to get started with AI-powered journey mapping in minutes. That's some great ideas of both how companies misstep. Unknowingly, they're trying to create an environment that's safe, but safe shouldn't be the ultimate goal, right? Progress is the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, safe and soft isn't good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Safe so that we can have the conversations to make progress, to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked earlier about fear, and I want to double tap on that because that is very true. I think people fear starting on something, starting on a goal, because they are fearful. Could be, I want to run a marathon, to I want to lose 20 pounds, to I want to build something I've never built before, to whatever it is. So tell us what you've learned about fear and why it has the power over us, and maybe how we can begin to, if there is such a word, depower it.
Yeah. Yes, let's take a look at this. So usually the reason why we have fear, now fear is very individual, right? Mm-hmm. So what might scare you may not scare me, or vice versa. So for each person, it's personal, it's individual, and sometimes it happens, it's very invisible. We don't even know when someone is scared or not, or when someone's feeling the fear, but it can definitely control people's behavior. So let's try to figure out, what does the science say in terms of helping us overcome the fear? Usually it's because of the unknown, or maybe we have a past experience of something not going well, so now we have the fear. Or many times it's uncertainty, I want to build this new thing, but I don't know know, right? And I don't know if it's going to work. So that uncertainty is what gives us fear. So I'm going to just cite some evidence by Albert Bandura, one of the psychology giants that has done a lot of work in this area. He doesn't call it fear. He really calls his theory self-efficacy. How do you build confidence or self-efficacy? So, one of the things he did to discover this is he was seeing patients in his practice as a psychologist. And for some reason, he had a lot of people who were afraid of snakes, a absolute phobia of snakes. So you would think of okay, let's just try to remove any snake from, and I don't know where he's from. I should probably look. They must have had a lot of snakes in that area. But one thing is let's just remove the fear so you don't have to feel in this fear state all the time. But what he found is that exposure to snakes in little steps desensitized people to it because it became more familiar. So the first thing he did is he would, have people in his therapy room and he'd show them pictures of snakes. It would make them uncomfortable, right? But they'd get more comfortable with it. And then he would bring in a snake in a cage across the room, which made them uncomfortable that it was over there. And then he would bring the snake closer to them, but it was still encased. And then he would take the snake out and he would handle it across the other side of the room. So what you're seeing is this is desensitization or exposure therapy. So as you get to know the snake, you're okay, this isn't so bad. Eventually, his patients would be handling the snake, and now they overcame the fear. So in general, as I answer this in the business world, is we got to ask okay, what is it that you fear? And instead of running away from it, we need to start taking step by step toward it and get closer to it. And when you become more familiar with it, then it's not so scary. I was really scared of writing a book first time. I'm a great leadership development expert, and I can go and teach leaders and drive results and do all that. I can do that all day long. That's easy for me. But writing a book, that is scary. What if I fail? One of the strategies that we can do is you can just take time to learn. Okay, talk to people. Who are other people that I know that I can talk to that have written books, and let me learn about their path and hear their stories. When I do that, now that's like taking the steps toward the snake, right? Okay, I'm seeing a picture of it. I'm asking about the journey. It's becoming more familiar to me. So basically study it. Talk to people who've done it. Ask them what mistakes did you make? What are the steps that you took to be able to get there? And then as you become more familiar with it, that fear really dissipates, because the whole goal is to take steps toward it.
That is great. I am one that has a fear of snakes.
Do you really? Okay.
I do. I have dreams of a whole group of snakes in a river, and somehow I'm there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I've got to walk around them or get past them, and I'm how come there's so many snakes here? But I just, part of it is I don't know which ones can either bite me or squeeze me to death.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And this is and sometimes fear is rational. We are wired to be motivated by our fear. So let me just make that claim too. It's the way we're wired. This is blame our evolutionary roots, right? And usually fear is what kept us safe. If we see something that's dangerous, we run away from it, and then our chances of survival are greater. So Daniel Kahneman, he's an award-winning psychologist, won the Nobel Prize in research for his finding that we are twice as motivated in terms of our behavior by fear and by risk than reward. So we're automatically wired to allow fear to control our behaviors, and it was more of a survival instinct. However, there are ways that we can overcome it. And the reason why we had that is it was physical danger, right? So maybe snakes, maybe that's a good thing wired. If you see a snake, I live in Southern California, we have rattlesnakes. I don't want to go pet a rattlesnake. That fear of that's a good thing. Sometimes we need to listen to fears because they are going to keep us safe. But most of the fears for people out in business, it's social fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of embarrassment. It's a fear of failure.
Yeah. In the book, you talk about 3 dimensions. Can you share what those are and how they work?
Yeah. So if someone wants to work on their bravery, remember I said I think everyone should, because we all have fears. Yeah, there's 3 different dimensions of basically actions that you can do. So tangible, little things that you can do that can build your bravery muscle. And bravery is like a muscle. If you want to build a muscle, you stress your muscle. You make it uncomfortable, you're a little sore, and then it gets stronger. So same thing with bravery. So the 3 different dimensions are, one is mindset, which I draw from cognitive psychology. So the second dimension comes from behavioral psychology, which is taking bold action in the presence of fear. So one is how we think. The second one is taking that action. And the third dimension is what I call your brave tribe, or your environment. And that I draw that from social psychology. So if you think about these three things, each one of them independently can help you become braver. But if you take a habit from each of these three, they have a compound effect. So let's say we work on mindset, and someone believes that stress and challenges are bad, and they want to avoid any type of challenges because challenges and stress are what create unhappiness. If that's what they believe, that's their mindset, then when stress happens, they're going to be unhappy, and they're probably going to make it stop in their tracks. So like one strategy I share with my clients is I share the research on stress mindset. The stress is enhancing mindset. So leading researchers, Aaliyah Crum, and others, Kelly McGonigal, what they have found is people's beliefs about stress and adversity are a predictor of how they handle it. A really important study that they did in the business world, because I work in the business world. I take this stuff to the business world. So sometimes when I hear psychology, I'm like, all right, I want a business example. So here's a business example. So they went into a company, I believe it was UBS, high stress environment, and they basically just spent 3 minutes to show a video to a large group of managers. Now, there's always, whenever you do empirical research, there's got to be like the control and then the placebo, right? So everyone got a 3-minute video. Some of the people got a 3-minute video saying, stress is horrible. It will kill you. You want to eliminate stress, right? The other half had the video that said, stress is enhancing. Stress is what helps you grow and develop. It can build your self-confidence. In fact, when you feel stress, it's your body preparing you to perform at your best. That's why your heart is beating, to get more blood going and to breathe. So stress helps you perform at your best. And then you have that big impact. And then so both are 3-minute videos. I mean, that literally the only intervention is a 3-minute video. What was the result? Put them in a high stress environment. The people that believe that stress is good for them, they outperformed the other group, and it was statistically significant. However, they measured that at UPS. They had higher levels of job satisfaction, and they even looked at health outcomes. And they looked at DHEA levels, which is something that we link to like resilience. I think they also looked at blood pressure. So like literally just doing a little cognitive work and helping change people's mindset. Stress is not bad for you unless you think it's bad for you, and then it will be bad for you. So that's a little kind of practical tip. Checking your email, doing everything that's easy. Most people get to work and they ease into their day. I teach people attack your day. Maybe it's the Marine in me, but I have to make things fun too. Like, what are the most important things that are going to help you drive your result? And you do that first. We have the most cognitive resources in the morning. So you do the hardest thing first. You attack the day, and then you get a dopamine hit, and then you have progress, and then you praise the progress. So just sometimes how we organize, our workflow, we're not thinking of our psychology when we get to work and how to organize it. So I teach that. And then social psychology, the last dimension, which is if you want to be brave, we do a lot of internal work, the cognitive side, the behavioral side, so that we're most motivated to take steps toward what we fear. But it also helps if you surround yourself with a brave tribe, which is other people who are stepping toward what they fear. When everyone's doing it, there's that conformity. So you want to surround yourself with other people who are being courageous. You want to curate a brave tribe. Who are the people that will encourage you? The word encourage means put courage in. So don't surround yourself with the people that are like, why are you stressing yourself out? No, that's good enough. Let's just go to lunch and not work. Let's just take the day off. You got to surround yourself with people who will call forth your best and help you be brave. So you surround yourself with that brave tribe, makes a big difference.
I love what you're saying about surrounding yourself with people who also value bravery and take risks and take chances. And I guess it just makes logical sense that you'd be more inclined to want to take risks and be more open to doing brave things if you're hanging around people, seeing them do it and seeing them take the risk, even if they're not always successful.
Exactly. I want to be smart, though. I don't want to just go 100% at something I've never done before without any knowledge. Like, I want to talk to people who have done it and go like, what mistakes did you make? What's the best path? I mean, let's be smart about it. But you're going to stumble and fall. And you want to surround yourself with other people that have that mindset.
So I love that mindset, taking bold action, environment, cognitive, behavioral, and social psychology, all built into that. Tell us, let me ask you one more question, but I do want to hit on one of the things you mentioned earlier, which is don't set easy goals. And also the other thing that's going to stick with me from this conversation is attack the day. Try to move some of those big rocks first, and then it'll give you a dopamine hit to keep you encouraged to keep going. Jill, this has been a great conversation. Before we sign off, I've got one more question for you, and then I'd like you to share with people how they might be able to reach out to you and find more information. And that is, what delights you as a customer?
You know what? It's when I feel surprise and delight. When I'm surprised because someone does something that exceeds my expectations. I fly all the time. I fly all over the world to speak, right? So I'm always flying. And just the other day, I was on a flight coming home, and there was this flight attendant. And she was greeting me with such positive energy and happiness that it seemed genuine. That's all she did. But I noticed it. And then when she came around, the genuine smile. So like, I don't need that much, but it's the genuine nature. It's not just like, can you ring me out as fast as possible? Can you bring me a drink? It's, for me, it's not necessarily the what, it's the how. So, and that's what sets it apart. I mean, in restaurants and hotels, like it's goes back to the emotional state in a way, right? So, instead of just complaining, when things don't go well, like I stopped and I told her, I'm like, you really made my day. And out of all the flights I've been on the last couple of months, you just really stood out as someone that was great. And I told her that.
Love that story. Jill, I should have done this at the top, but thank you for your service to our country.
Yes. Well, thank you for saying that. Choosing to serve in the Marine Corps, I mean, I'm happy that I chose to serve our country, but that experience served me because it built my bravery and my confidence. And I've taken that with me moving forward into corporate America. So I just feel so lucky to have been able to experience that and call myself, and to have earned the title of United States Marine. But thank you for saying that. And
tell us how people might be able to get a hold of you and or your book.
Yeah. So the easiest way is just my website. It's jillschulman.com. I recommend people either sign up for my newsletter, because in my newsletter, there's no fluff. It's always an evidence-based tip that you can apply right away to elevate your bravery and to elevate your results. So, and then you can find my book there. And also, if you follow me on any social media, I don't sell anything on my social media stuff. I simply try to bring value and give you little tips. So go to my website, follow me on any social media. You can buy the book, The Bravery Effect, starting August 26th, the launch date, anywhere they sell books.
Excellent. The book is called The Bravery Effect. Jill Schulman is my guest. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Delighted Customers Podcast. It would mean so much if you would take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts, click on the plus sign or follow button, and that will ensure that you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave a 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.